If you're forced to look at these metrics and also compare the metrics to your competitors, you end up having to think critically and strategically about decision making that ultimately improves them.
Brady, to start off, welcome back.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
Well, Brady, I want to get into some of your thought leadership, and you've done a great job in some of that in the ecosystem in a few different ways, including retail pays the bills, but you have a new article out that I think is really important as well. But before we get into that, I want to talk about your business. Bonzo Finance, you are the founder of Bonzo Finance, and it is going to be one of the first lending platforms in the Hedera space. So can you give us some updates? I know you're getting close to launching. Can you just tell us about some of your initiatives and other things that the community might need to know?
Yeah, absolutely. So, right, CEO and co-founder of Bonzo Finance Labs. We're contributing to Bonzo Finance. It is one of the first lending protocols that is coming to the Hedera ecosystem, and it's based on Aave, which is the most utilized lending protocol across the Web3 space today. The latest initiative that we have is a preseason points program. So if you've been following the project, we are running a points season. It's 3 seasons in total. Each season lasts 6 months. And users who are lending to the protocol and borrowing from the protocol earn points based on the values and the time that they're doing so. And this is to ultimately reward participants who are utilizing the protocol. At the end of each season, the points are used to inform an airdrop of Bonzo tokens and helping to ensure decentralization of the project and widespread adoption. And so for this preseason points program, what we're doing is a token-weighted airdrop of points designed to reward holders who are holding assets that are supported by the protocol on day one. And the way this works is we did a snapshot for token holdings on September 13th at 4 p.m. We're going to be starting the first distribution of Bonzo points today at 4 p.m., so September 16th, and that starts with HBAR X. And then continuing to do airdrops of points over the next couple weeks for each of the assets that are supported by Bonzo Finance, like PAC tokens, SOS, USDC, etc. The points are allocated based on the amount of each asset that you're holding. And so there's a unique regression curve for each asset just to make sure there's a fair distribution of points. And if you're holding an NFT multiplier, that amplifies your points earning. So a Bonzo NFT collectible, depending on the tier that you have, it's 1.1 times points, 1.2, 1.3, and 1.5. There's also a leaderboard, which is really cool. We're going to try and make this very competitive, and props to the HBAR community as well. I think they've done a great job of educating the ecosystem about points programs, their work. And so we'll be doing a leaderboard as well and doing updates for that over the next 2 weeks. And we're really excited about this program.
So is there anything besides holding the tokens in your wallet? Is there anything special that people need to do? Do they need to associate anything to make sure that they maximize these points?
Yeah, great question. So that's part of the beauty of using the HCS 20 standard for points. So points are actually inscriptions on the Hedera network. And with that standard, there's no need for any users to associate tokens or sign up somewhere. We can just deliver points right to their account, which is really great.
So if I had, karate tokens in my Karate Combat app, will that count?
That will count. And we're pretty excited about something we're doing with the Karate Combat app here in particular. When you look at the Karate Combat app, there's 400,000 plus users that have signed up, 400,000 accounts in the Karate Combat app, people who are holding karate tokens. But today, they're sort of locked into the Karate Combat app in that they aren't connecting Karate Combat to the DeFi ecosystem. And we want to try and create a distribution model in a sense where all of these karate holders are actually able to come into Hedera DeFi and start participating. And so we're going to be providing instructions on how to safely and at everyone's own risk import their Karate Combat wallet into Hashpack and then go to Bonzo and be able to check the points that they've earned based on the karate holdings that they have in the wallet, introduce them to Hedera DeFi, and get them set up with the rest of the ecosystem.
Perfect. That's exactly what I was hoping I was going to hear. Now I'd like to move on to some of the thought leadership that you've had in this space. So we're going to talk about that article. Why did you decide to take such a deep dive into the important metrics to pay attention to for the Hedera network?
It's a good question. I think having clearly defined and meaningful success metrics that are comparable to the rest of the market that the Hedera network competes in is really important. And today the kinds of metrics that we're seeing, I think, from Hedera are mostly focused around maybe total transaction counts. So we'll see, every 10 billion transactions, an update from the social handle for Hedera. We've hit the next 10 billion. And I think at the surface, that feels really nice and it gets people jazzed. But ultimately, I don't know if that actually meaningfully describes the network health, adoption, and competitive standing of the network. And we really have to sort of understand from the perspective of a scoreboard how Hedera is doing relative to the rest of the market that Hedera is competing in. And by focusing on metrics that matter and are comparable and help with strategic decision making, Hedera is better able to communicate its vision, align all the various organizations that are supporting the network's success, as well as all of the community members that are building on the network as well.
So the next question I have, of course, we've talked a little bit about some of the metrics that are being used currently. We have TPS. I know we focus on that an awful lot. So how do you think we should change about how we're looking at that? And what metrics do you think are important?
Yeah, so, there was a great discussion that I had with Rob, who I believe sits on the governing council, and this was on Reddit. We went back and forth a bit and trying to understand sort of objectively what it is that Hedera is focused on, and kind of what it drilled down into is revenue, which I think is great. That's a very important metric, and that's something that it sounds like they believe is important as well. I think the lens in which revenue is being viewed is very narrow. It's a low aperture. It's related to, the transaction counts of the Hedera consensus service and the Hedera token service. But with Web3, there is such a wide aperture of things that contribute to a network's overall revenue. And a lot of that, a lot of those things are related to sort of the network effects that we're seeing in Web3 and the need to look at metrics that are maybe one level below total revenue and things like market cap. And so some of those things are, total value locked in the DeFi ecosystem, or decentralized exchange trading volume, stablecoin liquidity, the market capitalization of RWAs. And I think the reason why it's important to focus on these metrics that are maybe, again, just one layer below is because what it ends up doing is forcing critical thinking and strategic decision making that improves these metrics, which ultimately end up relating back up to the network revenue.
That makes perfect sense. I'm going to go over the different metrics that you picked out. It was network revenue, TVL, DEX trading volume, stablecoin liquidity. So we're talking about USDC, how much we actually have minted on the network, real world asset market cap. So we're talking about things like BlackRock and Aberdeen tokenizing their funds on Hedera. We have a lot of different ones that are being done at this point. NFT trading volume and market cap. And then finally, native staking and liquid staking rates. So first of all, I'd like to back up. There is one that I really like, one metric that I do think that we need to focus on, and it aligns with the Hedera token holder, but more importantly, it aligns with the amount of capital that's available to the entire Hedera ecosystem. Market cap of HBAR, I think, is the best proxy to show how much capital is available for all of the different projects in our ecosystem, because of course we are building it on the back of HBAR. But I love the fact that you're focusing on the total network revenue. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think it should be unsubsidized revenue, which is another thing that we've talked a fair amount about. But I think those overarching themes make sense. But to a point that you made before we started to actually record here, I think all of the metrics that you have should be discussed at those governing council meetings. So why don't we dive into that a little bit, and how do we shift that focus so it's actually making its way into impacting the network?
Yeah, no, fully agreed. I think the metrics that you choose, they ultimately end up becoming actionable. It's if you're forced to look at these metrics and also compare the metrics to your competitors, you end up having to think critically and strategically about decision making that ultimately improves them. And so it creates a sense of, I think, accountability and better thinking about what's going to improve the adoption of the network.
So if we just want to give an example of that real quick, if the governing council every time is looking at how much USDC, how much Swiss franc stablecoin there is on Hedera, and they're looking at that in comparison to all of our competitors, they're probably going to think of more ways that we can bump that metric up. If they're having those discussions on a regular basis, not necessarily just the things that they're working on, but the things that are important to the rest of the network, to make sure that we're keeping up with our competitors on a lot of these metrics that they focus on a regular basis, right?
That's right. Yeah. And a significant number of these metrics too, they're driven by other services on the network beyond HTS and HCS. So if you look at the cost of utilizing smart contracts, it's potentially 10,000 times more expensive than using the Hedera consensus service. And so there's a huge impact on revenue when you start to dive into applications and tools that are utilizing other services on the network that I think are really important. And ultimately, if you're improving some of these metrics, and again, Hedera should really lead the discussion on that. I've listed some that I think, in my own opinion, might be important, but Hedera, the organization itself, needs to put a stake in the ground around what they see as important, and then continue to beat the drum towards improving those metrics.
I think that makes all the sense in the world. Brady, the other thing that I wanted to pretty much thank you for is that this being a decentralized network, I think sometimes people step back and they say, well, Hedera has this, or Hashgraph has this, the HBAR Foundation has this. We're a decentralized organization, right? This is all of the different players. And I think we all need to stand up and tell what our point of view is, get that out there, make sure that they understand our point of view, because if not, they may go off in different directions. They have to have all this information. And I think you're leading the charge with things like this article that you just put out.
Really appreciate that. It's important to have alignment. You can have decentralization and all still be aligned. And I think that's critically important. There's a number of different organizations, as you said, that are supporting the growth and adoption of the network. But ultimately, they should at least have a core focus that's aligned to some overarching vision and some quantifiable measure of success.
Very well said. Brady, before we let you go, is there anything else you'd like to cover?
Nothing else at this time. No, really excited about everything that's happening in the space. It does feel like there's a significant amount of movement and change just across the entire ecosystem right now. And, excited to be helping contribute to that change with our team and bringing lending online. Yeah, just looking forward to the next 6 to 12 months.
But Brady, I just want to say that, I really appreciate all the work you've put in after you've left Hashgraph, identifying the one space where we needed to fill a gap, and that was lending. And it seems like you're coming out with a really great product. Again, thanks for coming on, and I hope we see you back soon.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
I'm now posting these interviews of Hedera builders independently to my channel. The community, influencers, and media outlets are free to use this content to spread the word on what's being built on Hedera. Once they're all uploaded, you'll be able to go to my channel and search for whatever topic or team you're interested in to find more information. Or you'll be able to get the most recent Hedera news by watching the latest HBAR Weekly update. So check them out.